I'm about to turn 18 in a few months, and things have taken a surprising turn. Hey folks, before we dive into today's video, I'd really appreciate your support. Subscribing is one of the best ways to help us out. It's quick, free, and keeps the awesome content coming. Every listen, like, and share truly means a lot. Let's keep this channel growing. Thank you so much. Let me set the stage for you. I live in a house that belonged to my biological dad. He passed away when I was only 6 years old. Now, my dad and my mom weren't married, but when he died, he left house to me, so my mom and I haven't been living here ever since a couple of years. After my dad passed, my mom started dating again, and that's when my stepdad came in too. The picture they got married and he moved in with us, it seemed like everything was going okay until Rusentala. See, for the longest time, my stepdad was under the impression that the house belonged to my mom, no biggie. Right, except this misunderstanding led to a pretty awkward conversation just Theathorde as my 18th birthday approaches misstepped, sat me down for a serious talk, casually mentioned that once I'm 18 issued, start paying rent if I wanted to continue living here. It was a bit of a shock. I mean, paying rent in my own house at that sounded weird, so I corrected him explaining that the house actually belongs to me as it was left to me by my dad. He literally laughed. He thought I was joking. I couldn't believe he didn't know, so I had to clear things up. It talked to my mom about it, and she confirmed she had never actually told him that the house was mine. When Heavenly realized I was serious, the atmosphere changed. He was clearly embarrassed, but tried to justify his initial request by saying he thought Mimum owned the house. The next day, things felt a bit tense at breakfast. I decided to address the elephant in the room. I told Thembeth that since the house was in Deadmean, the fair thing would be for them to start paying rent if they planned. Toste, after I turned 18, I wanted to turn tables and see how he'd react given his previous stance on my independence. Me. Stepdad was taken aback. He argued thought this was unfair, and a sudden Changito drop on them without warning. He said it was harsh, and that you don't treat family like that. It was ironic considering he had no problem dropping threat bomb on me just the day before. Tried to defend his point by saying his initial idea was meant to help learn financial responsibility and prep her for adult life, but I shot back asking how it was any different when Helsier without contributing finally. What does that teach him? I asked. The argument got pretty heated. He accused me of being spiteful and trying to get back at him. He ended the conversation by calling me out of line and walked away. My mom stayed quiet during most of the argument, but Laddish told me she thought I was being too hard on him. She agreed that he shouldn't. They've asked me to pay rent, but she felt me reaction was pushing the family toward WA split despite the blow-up. Life went on, as usual, but with an unspoken tension in the air over the next few weeks. We all kind of danced around the topic. I spent a lot of time thinking about family dynamics and the concept of foam. It wasn't just about rent. It was about respect and understanding, about acknowledging each other's positions and feelings. I decided to have an oath or conversation with my stepdad this time. I approached it differently. I explained that I wasn't trying to kick them out or act spiteful. I wanted us to act like a family that supports each other, not one that takes advantage. I suggested maybe we could work out a system where they help with some bills or maintenance costs instead of traditional rent. It would be a way for all of us to contribute to our home and help maintain it. The conversation went a bit better. Me. Stepdad seemed to understand where I was coming from, and we agreed to sit down with my mom and discuss a fair solution. It was important to me that Will felt like we were being treated fairly, and that home remained a place where we all wanted to be. Looking back, I learned a lot about handling difficult conversations and standing up for myself. I also saw the importance of clear communication and respect in keeping a family together, even when things get tricky. It was a big moment for me stepping into adulthood, not just an age, but an understanding and managing real life situations. Am I the holy here now for some comments? Not Theahole. Charge him rent. It's not spiteful thoughts. What adults do, they either buy homes or pay rent for the places they live. He doesn't think you should be allowed to live rent-free when he thought your mother owned the house, but he thinks he should be allowed to live rent-free Tell him to cough up or leave it at to add by the way he told. You thought you have to pay rent in a house that he doesn't even own, even if your mother did down? The house any rental agreement should have come from your mother? Notham, you are not his child. He has no business parenting you, even if he had the best of intentions and when he tells you. He was only doing it to prepare yo for life and adult responsibilities, I call BS, if that is thatest, the way he truly felt then. He'll have gone through your mother since. She's related to you. And he thought it was her house. It wouldn't surprise me to learn that he was hoping then you'd pay him rent, lining his pockets with free money, collecting rent in a house that isn't even his. It's unfair, because it's a sudden change. Giite was perfectly fine. When the sudden change was happening to you, not Theahole, he needs to act like an adult and pay his own way in life, get a rental contract, make them sign it or start eviction. Process you know that he will 100% make you pay up or get out, not Theahole. Oh, when the shoe is on the other foot, your stepdad is all about taking care of family. Why wouldn't your mom tell him at some point you wouldn't to either have this as your home or selling it or renting it out for incommodated? She really believed that she and him will just continue to live there forever. I would stand firm and draw up a lease that would begin in 30 days. This is your house, and honestly, I don't believe that your mom had any intention of ever letting this be your home. Now that he knows it's yours, he sounds like would try to push you around, hadn't even tell your mom he was asking you for rent. Story 2. A few years ago, my family faced one of the toughest times we could imagine, as we lost our father to cancer before he married Ormum. Dad had a life filled with incredible adventures. He was part of Thea crew for some famous rock bands, known for their big hair and loud music. During his early 20s, he lived life on the road, traveling from city to city with these bands, and he had his share of wild experience. Dad often told us stories from thosies filled with concerts, late-night parties, and endless travels. He had a sense of humor about it all, frequently making jokes about how chaotic his life was back then. Sometimes he'd laugh, Anzi. He wouldn't be shocked if we had a half-brother or half-sister out there somewhere. According to him, there were many things from those days that he simply couldn't remember. But beneath his slaughter, there was a hint of worry, it seemed, like the idea that he might have another child out there whom he never met or helped raise. Actually bothered him a lot more than he let on. Seeing his hidden concern, my siblings and I decided to do something about it. We thought that taking a DNA test might shed light on any unknown aspects of our dad's past. We didn't expect much, maybe discovering some distant relatives at most for years. That's exactly what the pond, nothing beyond a few distant cancers. However, everything changed dramatically when Dad's health took a turn for the worse, and he had to enter hospice care around 6 months before he passed away. We received a notification from the DNA testing asterisk service. It was a match, but not with a distant cousin this time. It was a half-sister, and she was almost a decade older than me. This was a big deal. The timeline off her birth perfectly matched the period when our dad was touring instantly with those rock bands before responding to her. We felt it was important to discuss it with Dad first, especially considering his frail condition. He was extremely weak and sick. But when we mentioned that we might have found his other daughter, the news hit him hard. He broke down crying, something hadn't seen him do very often. Through his tears, he told us that this was exactly what he had always feared the most, having a child out there that he hadn't been there. For that he hadn't supported. He expressed a strong desire to talk to her as soon as he could. He wanted to make up for lost time, at least in whatever way he was capable of. In the days he had left when we connected with our newly discovered half-sister, things quickly took a turn for the worse. After sharing our dad's number and explaining us serious health condition as well as fact that he was unaware of her existence until recently, her response was far from understanding. Instead, she began to bombard him with phone calls, often filled with anger and accusation. She would scream questions at him, asking why he left her and her mother, why he never searched for her, and calling him irresponsible. We stood by feeling helpless as we listened to these painful exchanges. We even urged him to hang up, but he refused. He believed that listening to her absorbing her pain and anger, was the last thing he could offer her in his final days. After our dad passed away, the tension escalated. When informed her of his death, Her immediate reaction was to inquire about their inheritance. I was taken aback. By her bluntness, his medical bills had depleted now, all his savings, and after paying his funeral, we were left with just $11. Zero. I explained to her that there was hardly anything left, and what little was left was meant to be split among siblings. And me, I also expressed to her how deeply hurt I was by the way she treated our father during his last days. Told her I couldn't forgive her for adding stress to his final moments, and he pointed out that it wasn't entirely his fault. She grew up without him. Her mother also played a role in the situation. My mom and sisters think I'm being too harsh. They say I should try to understand how she feels about growing up without a father and suggest that issued. Just give her the remaining money, considering it isn't a large sum, and her life hasn't been easy, however, disputed their arguments. I find myself unable to move past her actions. Our dad appointed me to manage high estate, and I feel a strong responsibility to honor his last days, which were overshadowed by turmoil and regret due to those distressing calcits, a tough position to be in. Balancing fairness, grief, and unresolved family tensions now, for some comments, not Thea Hole, the fact that the first concert had when he passed was money hadn't know of her existence, and I won't say he's not to blame, but it's something her mother could have, I don't know, mentioned to him years ago. She directed all of her anger and frustration to the wrong person. And honestly, empathy after that. Sorry for your loss, and please stick with your gut on this. Not the whole, not your responsibility. Shisrud has no empathy. He clearly had worried for this. He had regret, I'd say, if she had some compassion, showed some sort of love or understanding, and didn't demand money from a dead man. She doesn't know at all, then there could be some type of care for her, sort of not really, not Thea Hole. I mean, if your father had wanted her to have something, he would have added her to the estate. He was talking to her, so it sounds like he was of sound mind. If he had wanted to, don't give her any money, stop taking her else. It doesn't sound like she wants to get talk know you anyway. I get it. She's angry, but that's not your burden to bear. Story 3. So I'm a 40-year-old mom with a wonderful 15-year-old daughter named Amiev. Been raising her on my own for the most part. A few years back, I shared with Avirian that I'm gay, and just last year I married Jenna, who's 42. Jenna brought a new addition to our family, her daughter, Nora, who's 13. We've all been living together under one roof, and I have full custody of Amy. It was a bit of an adjustment at first for Amy to get used to the idea of having another mom around, but now they're doing great together. Our household became even more lively. Becca's, Amy, and Nora's birthdays are super close to each other, only separated a couple of days, considering that, and knowing that Nora has been a bit shy and has had some trouble making friends since she moved in with us. We thought it would be a fantastic idea to throw a joint birthday party for them. It seemed like the perfect way to help Nora feel more integrated and celebrated in our new family setup. Because most of my relatives live abroad, they tend to send gifts ahead of time. This year, they sent a big bag full of gifts about a week for supper. The party, there were at least 20 gifts in there, all wrapped up in Redito. Make the birthday girl smile. The party itself was a hit. Lots of fun, laughter, and cake after the guests left, and it was just our little family. Jenna started to hand out the gifts. She pulled out gift after gift from the bag, and when noticed, they were all for Amy. After about 12 gifts, I started to feel a bit uneasy. I reached into the bag again and found that there was only one left, and it was for Nora. Nora, trying to stay up, Bido binned her gift from my parents. It was a 115 tumbler from Walmart. You could see her trying to hide her disappointment. It wasn't about the price, but the thought. Bended Amy, on the other hand, had received an array of high-end gift cards, each worth well over 100, a brand new limited edition smartphone, some really cool gadgets, fancy designer clothes, and a bunch off heartfelt birthday cards. Seeing the stark difference in how the gifts were distributed really got to me. I couldn't help feeling that my family hadn't considered Nora equally, and it seemed unfair, especially seeing her try to brush it off, but clearly feeling left out that night, fueled by a mix of disappointment and mama bear instinct, took to the family chat. I called out Miss Ablings, my parents, and extended family momers for not thinking of Nora, and I expressed my frustration about the casualness of the gift. Nora receive it? Compared. Two lavish ones I wanted to McKeasure. Everyone understood that Nora is just as much a part of our family as Amyand. It's important that she feels valued and included, especially on occasions like her birthday, after the party when I confronted my family. About the unequal gift-giving, they brushed off my concerns. They argued that it wasn't their responsibility to buy gifts for Narasans. She isn't directly related to the man. They felt that Amy deserved her gifts because she was their blood relative. They also mentioned that since I hadn't thrown a separate party for Amite, it was my issue to deal with the dynamics. Between Jenna and Nora not here's, seeing Nora feel left out was new. Unfortunately, this wasn't the first time she'd been overlooked by my family, which made the whole situation even more painful for her, wanting to smooth things over. I turned to Amy that night. I asked if she might share just a few of her many gifts with
Nora.
Not everything, just some of the gift cards and a couple off new clothes. To my surprise, Amy was really upset by the suggestion. She had always been about sharing before Andalthau. She and Nora weren't the closest of friends. They generally got along fine, but when I asked her to share, Amy broke down crying. She confessed Thatch had never wanted a joint birthday party in the first place. She felt like I was constantly making her sharive everything with Nora, from their room tow parties to sleepovers. If only one of them was invited somewhere, I didn't go unless both were included. Amy expressed that she wanted something off her own, especially her birthday gifts. She felt were the one thing that could be just hers. In response, I told her off for being selfish and grounded, or I even took a couple of her presents and offered them to Nora, hoping it would show some fairness. However, Nora refuseth, not wanting to cause more trouble with Amy or feel like she was accepting pity gifts. Since then, Amy has been pretty distant and cold toward all of it. UC really just wanted to bring my daughters closer together with the joint party and make sure they both felt equally loved and included, but it seems like it backfired, and now I'm not sure how to fix the tension in our family. Amy, Thea, whole clarification. Jen and I bought gifts for the girls, their own tablets as well as their friends. Nora also received gifts from her extended family, but they asterisk sent for Amy as well now for some comments. Yes, you are the whole. You're basically asking your daughter to charade her complete identity with Nora, her room, her stuff, her family, her friends, her birthday party, the parties she goes to, sleepovers. Is there anything really hers that can't be good for her? Development needs to be her own person story. For so my husband Finn, we're a couple and we have very different salaries right now. Finn was making good money before, like $44 a month, but he wanted to go back to school to get a master's degree, which is awesome, but no way makes way less, because the scholarship doesn't pay much. He gets about $2,300, but after he pays for all his school stuff, he's only left with about $1,500 each month now. I make more money, about $7 a month, so I pretty much take care of 90% of our expenses. We keep all our money together in joint accounts, and I'm all for supporting him while he gets his master's, because he think it's super important for his future. So Finn's childhood buddy Marcus was getting married. Finn was not just ageist, he was the best man, which is a big deal. He had to organize the bachelor party before the wedding, even though all friends who were supposed to help Hermised to chip in for the party cost money didn't actually pay up. They just ignored Finn's messages about the money, leaving him to foot most of the bill, which ended up being around $2. Finn came to me a bit stressed and asked if I could cover the bachelor party expenses since I had some money set aside. I agreed to help him out. I also gave him $1,500 in cash to keep on hand for any emergency situations, just a little extra backup. Cut to the wedding day. There's this tradition at some weddings where they cut the groom's tea and go around to the guests asking for money, kinda like a fun way to collect a wedding gift on the spot when it wastes time for Finn and Marcus to come to Ertebel. Finn decided to use the $500 emergency cash I gave him. He thought it would be a cool move to show his support, be putting all that cash on. Marcus's Tiavrion was cheering, and it seemed like a fun moment, but inside, I was really not happy that money was meant for actual emergencies, not just as a showy gift at a party. It felt like the money we realigned to keep. Just in case was used to pin away that wasn't planned. After Finn used the emergent psych at the wedding, things got a bit intense. Between us, he came back to Erdeball about half an hour later and immediately told him that the one Aviv him was meant for real emergency as not. For showing off in front of a crowd, argued that since the money was from our joint funds, he also had the right to decide how to use it, especially if it was to help a friend like Marcus. I tried to explain that while our shared expenses and emergency funds arrended for both of us, using that money just to look good in front of others felt wrong. To me, I told him that in situations like that, the money felt more like it was mine and I wanted it back. I reminded him that we had already covered the bachelor party costs, which was more than enough financial support for the wedding we ended up arguing, and the rest of the week was pretty rough between us. I was firm about wanting the 1,500 back, even though Finn felt like I was being unfair or manipulative since I financially support his studies, and he relies on me a lot right now. I knew asking for the money back might seem petty since he doesn't have much to spare, but it was important to me that we use our emergency funds silently for real emergencies, or at least discuss such big spending decisions. First, am I the whole now for some comments? Minimum wage here, 12200. I think asking for him to take it back, Isa. Bit much, however, I do think he should make it up somehow. Can he sell some longings or get a part-time job? Noth a hole because your husband is behaving immaturely. He needs to accept that your joint financial situation is not great right now, and you being all right with shouldering more expenses no for long term. Joint gain is not allicance for him to spend on his buddies like he's still bringing in a good paycheck in the meantime. Stop giving him so much for emergencies, I have a feeling. Problem with your husband goes far beyond this. He's living beyond his means, and that spells a ton of future trouble life. You do not separate your finances, no not. Want the a whole? Not the a whole, but you might want to cut your losses or speak to the groom himself and explain the situation, even if you didn't intend for thrift money to be spent that way. Asking for a wedding gift back is in bad taste. You really have to have it back. Go tough guy himself. If they're a decent person, they'll understand. Story 5. I'm the owner of a business where 15 people work. I prefer not to share what kind of off business it is, but despite some tough times, it's doing pretty well. I have 3 kids, 24, 22, and 21 years old from me first marriage. I also have a stepson named Josh who is 18 years old. When I mention stepson, I just mean that Josh is me wife's son from before I met her, but Tom, he's just like my own son back when first 3 kids were younger. I had Errol. If they ever wanted to work at my business, I would set up a real job interview for them. They didn't know that Ty planned to hire them, regardless of how the interview went. I wanted them to have the experience of a job interview base. It's good practice. They'd learn what it's like and feel more prepared. The future in case they wanted totally different careers. 2 of my kids like the idea and still work with me today 8 years ago. Emmett, the woman who would become my current wife, she introduced me to her son Josh about a year after we met. Before she let me meet Josh, she was really clear about wanting to know what role he'd have in my life. I promised her what I would treat him just like my own child. We got married a year later, and from that day, Josh started calling Meted. He's never known his biologic father, who left because he didn't want children, so for Josh to call me dad is a me thing. I consider a great honor. My eldest 3 kids have welcomed him as their brother from the start. They include him in everything they do, like going on trips, watching movies, or just hanging out at home. He's 100% part of 4 family, and everyone treats him like has always been there. This setup has helped us build a strong, united family where everyone supports each other no matter what. It's been great seeing all of them grow up, make decisions together, and become close as siblings after my wife and I got married. I offered some opportunity to Josh that I had Javon to my other kids. I told him that if he ever wanted to work at my business, I would set up a job interview for him, just like I did for his siblings recently. Josh finished his last year of Phi school and was unsure about whether to go to university or start working after. Thinking it over during the summer holidays, which just started, he decided that university wasn't the right path for him right now and that he'd rather get a job, so he came to me and asked if I could arrange a job interview for him at my company. I happily agreed. What I haven't told him yet is that he's going to get the job no matter how. The interview goes, I think it's important for him to go through the process of an interview to gain some experience. In confidence, however, when I discussed this plan with my wife, she was really upset. Felt that by making Josh go through an interview, I wasn't treating him the same way as my biological kids event, though. This was exactly what I had done for them. I explained to her that Josh already has the job, but I believed Thethoving an interview experience would be beneficial for him, just as it was for his siblings. My wife thinks that since Josh is the youngest, maybe it would be fairer to just give him the job without an interview, especially since he's shown interest in initiative by asking for itches, been quite unhappy with me for the past couple of days. Because of this disagreement, I'm trying to balance being fair to all my children while also preparing them for the real world. And it's tricky when you're blending a family with different expectations and perspectives. I hope we can resolve this soon, as it's important for all of us to be on the same page and support each other now. For some comments, not the whole. You are being extra malarious-able. It's honestly a bit alarming that she would have that reaction, Anzi, that you don't treat him like your son, despite 8 years of doing just that over a job interview. He isn't bothered by it. You've done it for all your kids made. She has something else bothering her because it is hard to justify her response here. Not the whole, you are quite literally treating your stepson the way you treated your biological children. And being the youngest doesn't entitle him to special privileges. You genuinely don't see why your wife is upset, not the whole at all. He is buying given a job, and you're helping him get some real-life experience. He's getting exact same treatment that your other kids received. Your wife's behavior is just plain weird here.